The High Court in Gauteng has granted a declaratory order on the so-called once empowered, always empowered rule for black economic empowerment ownership transactions in the mining industry. This means that even if a black economic empowerment partner in a firm leaves, the company retains their BEE status. For more on this, I'm joined by Manus Booysen from Webber Wentzel. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. So the first question I'd ask is, how fair is this ruling in terms of properly transforming ownership patterns in South Africa as envisaged by legislation like the 2002 Mineral Resources and Petroleum Act?
Well, if you ask about fairness, I think it is fair because we need certainty in a regulatory framework regarding the grant of mining rights. So that's very important. I don't think it's particularly unfair. The court has ruled that for applications, the original charter must still be considered. The question is, after a mining right has been granted and the requirements of the charter has been complied with, and the holder of the mining right loses its BEE status or it falls below the required 26%, whether the mining company then has an obligation to top it up. And the court has ruled that it is not an obligation, a self-standing obligation on the holder of the mining right by virtue of the provisions of the charter.
So practically, how would this work? If a BEE partner leaves a mining company and perhaps they have to bid or tender for new work, and black economic empowerment is a requirement in that tender, would the company retain that status and say that they are still empowered even if that BEE partner has left?
Yes. Look, this is relates only to the application for mining rights. So if a company applies for a mining right, it must comply with the charter, and the minister must consider the charter requirements to decide whether or not to grant the mining right. When it is granted the mining right, and the holder of the mining right loses its 26% BEE ownership, then the ruling says that there is no obligation on the mining company to top up and bring it back up to 26%.
I see. So what implications does this have for this contested mining charter that former Mineral Resources Minister Mosebenzi Zwane has left, and the new Mineral Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe is saying he's going to consult a little bit more widely on this?
Yes, the new charter, or the Charter 3 as we call it, which has been suspended and is subject to negotiation between the minister and the industry at the moment. I don't think it's got direct implications for that. The existing regime will apply until the new. It is possible that there will be legislative changes to change this principle that has been established by the court. Alternatively, the charter could, no, I don't think the charter itself could impose that self-standing obligation, so there will have to be legislative changes. There is, I must just add that there is a proviso that if the mining rights conditions itself imposes that obligation on the mining right holder to top up its BEE ownership requirement, then that obligation will stand. Mm-hmm.
Practically, how much of the mining community does this order affect?
It affects all existing mining rights that have been granted up to now, so that principle will apply to all existing mining rights. Mm-hmm. When new mining rights are granted, the department could get around that principle by imposing a further obligation in the mining right itself, that obligation to top up the ownership requirement if the BEE company sells out its shares. Mm-hmm.
So this order is quite new, so we don't know if the department is going to appeal or not. If they are unhappy with this order, what steps can they take?
If they are happy with the order?
If they are unhappy with the order?
Well, they could then, there are two steps that they could take. They could try to appeal the judgment. Alternatively, they could introduce legislative changes to overturn that principle. Mm-hmm. But the wheels of the legislative process are turning slowly, so I'm not sure how long that will take, but it is a possibility.
Thank you very much for your time, Manus Booysen from Webber Wentzel, explaining to us the implications of that declaratory order. Let's take